Really going to use my full time, and I'm just going to give you a little warning. It's going to be a very bumpy ride because I'll have to talk very fast. I have a lot of content, so the trade-off is that it's like flashes. I'm going to use a lot of flashes so that you can think about it. And if I will have time, I will synthesize it. And if not, I'll leave it to you to synthesize. What I want to raise your level of curiosity. So let me start with a basic paradigm. This is based on accumulated research as well as my personal experience. And the question always becomes, what does it take to become an effective change agent at any level? Doesn't matter if you want to change individuals, you want to change teams, you want to change organizations, you want to change society. And I reached the conclusion that in order to become a very effective change agent, you need 3 legs. And if you don't have these 3 legs, you're going to be handicapped in whatever you're trying to do. One of them is to have a very interesting story to tell. Call it a theory, call it a narrative, call it whatever you want. You need to have something, but something that is meaningful not to you, to the people that you're trying to cater to the people that listen to you. So, theory, model, narrative, story that is appealing. This is number 1, but that's not sufficient. Number 2, you need to have a very clear idea, methodology of how to apply this concept into reality. Because if you have the ideas and you don't have the methodology, you're bound to fail. And number 3, you need tools. We lack tools in the social science, we lack tools in management. And one of the great ideas, we don't apply them because we lack tools. So what I want to go with you, I want to talk a little bit about these 3 in the concept of what I call culture reengineering. And my principal idea is that I call it a servant leader, but one can call it change leader, is that in the 21st century, anyone that wants to lead change needs to become, number 1, a coach to a team, a coach that creates alliance with other people because we cannot do it alone, and develop what I call an empowered culture. An empowered culture can apply to any level of analysis. And I want to tell you one thing, and this is not to provoke researchers, we're all colleagues. But I can tell you that until a month ago, I was the editor-in-chief of a journal. It's one of the leading journals of Emerald. Emerald is a big publisher in the UK, and I was the editor for about 7 years of one of the leading journals. And I reached the conclusion, I talk a lot about it, about my fellow editors, that knowledge and changes in research, in publication, is very incremental. We hardly see disruptive changes, paradigm breakers in journals, because journals by nature are very, very conservative. And at least, I don't know how it is in psychology, I don't know how it is in education, I can tell you about management. We are worried about it because there is an avalanche of Indian, Chinese that are publishing a lot. They are very good in methodology and data, and they're not creative enough. In other words, it's the European that used to be the one that came up with some ideas, theory, and they were not afraid so much. And now what we see in the top leading journals, a lot of Chinese name, a lot of Indian name, just because of the critical mass, and also because of the knowledge how to apply rigorously methodologies. And reviewers like it, but knowledge is incremental. One of the reasons that you need to go beyond this and to try to affect change, as what I learned, is not be satisfied only with research, pure research output. Be courageous to also write books, write articles, because if you want to be an effective change, I am just finishing my 64th book right now, this week, okay? And I write in different languages because I happen to speak about 7, 8 languages, and it helps to communicate, it has to reach different communities because you create empathy. So you come, and I was in Guadeloupe about a month ago, so I spoke French, and so on and so forth, okay? It helps because empathy, when you use the people language, already they're tuned to listen to you. So when I want to talk to you about so I write books, and I found out that I get more solicitation to come and to act as change agent based on my books than based on my 140-something papers published in scientific journals. And I'm amazed. So I'm courageous at this point in my career. Probably I have nothing to lose. I don't need it for tenure. I don't need it for promotion, so maybe I can afford to take more risk. And I write more books and more papers to journals that can reach wider communities if I really want people to listen to what I tell. And sometimes when I write books, I write about themes that the vocabulary doesn't entail content, so we invent new names. There is no other, because that's part of the change agent. We just invented in a book, we call it Cyberness, The Future Reinvented. I wrote it with Mario Reich. He's a Swiss guy. I think he's a futurologist. And Riane Eisler, I don't know if you heard about her. She's one of the American lady, I call it one of the 10 most paradigm breakers in this world, okay? She talks for about 25 years or so, the need to abandon the paradigm of domination and move into what she calls partnership and care. But if you want, read about Riane Eisler and so on. So, and The Future Reinvented, by the way, Cyberness, that just came out, 5 minutes I didn't even start, okay? Is something that basically means that we need to really be courageous in changing paradigms. Now, how do you create? I use the metaphor of the pendulum. If you switch a pendulum a little bit, you change a little bit, but you take limited risk. When you start, those of you that live near Santiago, the pendulum, the big one in the church over there, how, when they move it a lot, it moves like this. So the distance between sheer innovation and stupidity is very close. But you need to take the risk. So over the years, what I did, for my books, I write books such as, Future Reinvented or Corporate Guide to Living, Being Alive, and Making a Living in the 21st Century. And I've developed a lot of ideas about how the work will look tomorrow. Some people like to listen to it, some people don't like to listen to it. But what I'm doing really in the books is telling people why we should change at different level. What is the methodology of embracing change? And some of the tools that we are developing. And the tools that I've developed, sometimes at the individual level, are very stupid tools. I've developed a box of games for children, so that as a parent, we want to instill values in our children, but we don't have the tools. We all want to do the best parents in the world. So I've invented a game that through game, you can understand the value, what's important to children, you can develop a common culture for the family, you can follow it up. It's called the value of values. If you ever go to the internet, you'll find out, I'm not promoting it, by the way, this is one thing that I feel embarrassed sometimes that they're talking about books and talking about tools. Those are tools. So I'm developing right now a community of coaches, and my alliance is the International Coaching Federation, ICF, and we're certifying people in becoming coaching. And in the last 20 years, I've developed the concept of values. I work with values that are just words, but today, with all my research publications, I can show that values are the DNA of our behavior, much more than our needs. Psychology talks about needs for many, many years, which is true. Today, what guides really our behavior is our values. And the values, I develop a theory of a zero-sum game. So if you have some core values are more important to you, the other one cannot play as much role. So we have a very interesting value system. I have 5 minutes, so I'm trying to do it much faster. And we talk about the 3 axes of values, because it's the configuration of values that can explain us what is it that we want. How do we define success, and how do we want to change, and when are we going to change? So there are values connected with the economics and pragmatical issues. There are values connected with social. Those are the rule of the game. Social and ethical issues. And the last and the most important are the emotional values. Emotion, passion. I always say that there is no innovation if there is no passion. When I supervise doctoral students, I give them 15 minutes interview. If I don't see the passion, the eyes almost getting out, they'll never work with me. And now I have a student finishing PhD in 2 years, record in ESADE, okay? So because they also know how to manage the director. That's one of the competencies they have. Now, but we're talking about very dynamic world. So we have 3, and it's very nice because the 3 of them act in a very dynamic way, and I want to show you the dynamics because there are a couple of things, and this is beautiful because I work with a postdoctorate, he's an engineer, you know, and he helped me develop this one. You see, what happened is that there is the interfaces between the 3 values. Because if there is a crisis in ethics, you don't survive. The economics doesn't work. This is true for family, for organization, for countries. And if there is an interface between the ethical values and the emotional values, and this is sensitivity. People are sensitive. So if you want to develop sensitivity to the environment, you need to look at the interfaces between people's rule of the games, ethics, and also their emotion. How do they feel about it? Sorry. And the last but not least, innovation. See, if you want to innovate, you need to be a little bit like a pirate within your own organization. To be, you know, to touch and to go out, to touch and to go out. And that's what we're trying to do. So it's very interesting stories, you know, to talk about the theory of values. Again, it's all in the books, but I just want to show you some tools. And the tools could be very sophisticated from understanding. I did an online software that is doing what we called value audit. We can audit value like you do financial audit, due diligence. You can also find out what is the culture, what are the subculture in organization, which gives you the target for change. It also gives you a baseline so you know quantitatively where do you start and where do you end up. I'm doing it right now in a big organization in Spain. It's called SEAT. I know it's a Volkswagen group, trying to change the culture of producing cars. It's a very interesting story. It will last about a year and a half. Now this is the game, you see? So there are some games called the value of value. Through game and fun, you find out, by the way, I do it with executive, top executive of many companies. You know why? One of the major barriers to change is the fear of change. So when you go to organization, they say, no, we do it. No, it's not needed. So what I do with companies, with top executives, tell them, let's start to play children games. Say, well, that's okay, that's for children. By the time they understand that it's not for children, for adults, it's too late. They're caught already in the process. So this is my methodology of trying to overcome the fear of change. I'm finishing it. You know, I also write some stories for children, storytelling, talking about narrative, okay? And I know when I started to write story for children, people told me, who gave you the right to write, the permission to write story for you? You're not PhD in education. What do you know about children? I said, I know nothing. I was a father, you know, now I'm a grandfather. And I know that children identify with heroes, with some people. So I wrote some books that are coming up, by the way, in 28 languages. And a very interesting experiment, I launched a message in the social network. I didn't want to translate it to take professional. I said, how many of you speak other language that are interested in helping me bring these stories to your culture? And I let my collaborator that translate it to end up the story the way that fits their culture. So in other words, they can affect also the latest change. 28 countries were coming. I'm trying to respect, you know, my time, but that's basically what I'm doing. By the way, we're in Spain, and in Spain there is a tradition of thanking for giving me the podium. If I could, I would give you all floor. And then you remember, you know, that you're in Spain. I don't have a floor, but I have one virtual coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Simon. Some question? Any question? For Simon Dolan? I will make a question then.
Okay.
When you present your model of values and the connection, when you present your model of values and the connection with your theory of change, well, values, economical or emotional or ethical, well, are not acting in an isolated way, but they exist in interaction. No? In interaction between each other, but also in interaction with other dimensions like self-efficacy or or like identity, some other psychosocial processes that happen in the real life, no? For predicting the social behavior. So, how do you connect these in the material that you produce, basically?
If you go to the books, what I'm trying to show is that for mature people, our core values do not change every day. In other words, the core values, not some other thing. The analogy I can give you is that I don't know which restaurant you went yesterday, but some restaurant offer a buffet. So you go to the buffet and you can pick up whatever you want. Now, it's the same with values. You may want to eat everything in the buffet, but you don't have the capacity. So you have to pick and choose. You make choices. Life is all about choices. Choices and configuration. So you look at your capacity to pay, you look at what you like, and you pick up the menu, from the menu, whatever you like. The same thing with values. So when you do things, for example, and we are brainwashed to think, let's say, economics, efficiency, and all this, but you can change it, because one of the paradigm that is changing, I didn't have time to explain it, is in the future, the paradigm of efficiency is going to be replaced with a paradigm of effectiveness. And there is a major difference. Efficiency basically means that you need to produce as much as you can with the least resources, and in between there are benefits. Effectiveness means that you need objectives. And sometimes, in order to get your objective, you need to place more resources rather than less resources. And this is a matter of value for people that understand it. And I can tell you some horror stories because I act as business coach to some large CEOs in many organizations. And it all depends if their reference point is efficiency or effectiveness. Efficiency is short-term, we know it for sure. All of us that care about the environment, about sustainability, about humankind, we need really to think seriously about effectiveness rather than, and politicians need our help because politicians have 4 years horizon from one election to another election. So we need to help them in reshaping their narrative, their mind, and give them tools so they understand. They don't have tools. Well, I cannot give you an answer in 3 minutes. It's going to be disservice. But what I'm saying is that I can show the configuration of a zero-sum game, and I can walk with a lot of people here, and they are discovering it, that the day-to-day activities really, but we're not all aware of it. But actually, values are predictors for day-to-day behavior much more than our needs. In daily situation, not in extreme situation. Extreme situation, we can eat human flesh, but in daily situations, it's our values that really, and that's what we discovered, and values could be shaped.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Any other question?